to start, I don't know where to start now. Tell me where you hide, where do you go? Tell me, is she nice?
Hey everybody! Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome back.
To
Episode
3 of the Venus the podcast. So we have a special guest today by the name of Tony Dancer, but you can also watch us on the IG live. So we'll bring him up shortly, but we have a few notes to make.
little pre-podcast announcement and disclaimers. So
Yes. So we'll quickly do acknowledgement of country. So we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and recognise their continuing connection to the land, water and sky. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. And further on from that, guys, so as you all know, this is just a discussion. This is our opinion, including Tony's. You're more than welcome to write questions in the comment section with... Sorry?
I was gonna say you can write questions or DM us.
Yes, on Instagram or on the Facebook Live. But yeah, so if you have any questions for Tony throughout this very important and very awesome opportunity and discussion, please keep writing throughout the chat, but we won't be answering them until the end, okay?
Turns out my mic wasn't on this whole time.
Oh, lovely, 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 lovely.
But yeah, let's introduce our special guest today. We have Tony Dancer. That's his on Instagram, by the way. So yeah, we're gonna get him in. Just give us like 2 seconds.
Oh, sorry, I'm muting myself on the IG Live.
Yeah, we're gonna have him on the IG Live as well.
All right, so just give us 1 second. We've got to request him. We've got to bring him in to the party. Alrighty, well, thank you for being patient with us, everybody. This is very new to us, and if anything, we're learning, and we're learning more and more every time we go. Alrighty. Give it.
Cool. We'll start with the first question.
Yeah.
Or do you want to wait? We'll start? I think we should just start.
Yeah, let's not
Cool.
waste time.
So the first question, Tony, we have for you is, what does the Black Lives Matter movement mean to you in the present time?
Okay, it's good that you ask in the present time because, like you introduced it earlier, it's been going on for years now, and even before being invented. Because at some point at some point in time, you have to make up labels and notions and words and hashtags and stuff. But before being invented and before being yelled at, like protests or whatever, it was like you said, like it's been an issue forever, like since basically black people have existed, so like
Yeah.
since for pretty much forever. So it's like it's like two feelings I have right now. The first one is to say I'm kind of happy that it's getting big and bigger than it has ever been before, this Black Lives Matter movement. But at the same time, I'm kind of sad that we had to reach such a like a terrific amount of terrific period, like so many issues happening, black lives being threatened, black lives being put at stake every single day, and not only in the United States and not only in the forms we've seen it in the United States, but so yeah, like on one side I'm really happy that it's like getting more and more visibility, but on the other side I'm like, oh wow, okay, it took us a lot of time for it to be kind of acknowledged, and it's still debated today. So honestly, we're not there yet, but yeah.
Cool.
I have a little like follow-up question because you talked about how it's been around for a long time, but it only recently blew up. How do you feel about? Because I've been seeing a lot of posts on Instagram and Facebook of people being dragged about hopping on the bandwagon and
Yep.
only joining because it blew up right now, or people are doing it for clout, or just like everyone's doing it, therefore they're doing it. Like, how do you feel about this? Because personally, the way I see it, it's like it's good that people are spreading awareness, but obviously it would be best if after this movement kind of simmers down, they'll continue to do the work behind the scenes.
And
But yeah.
and not be kind of like a performative ally and see, oh, all these people are doing it, that means I should be doing it. And yeah, to continue the work and actually believe in everything and all these things that they're preaching and saying.
Yeah,
and
how do
sharing.
you feel about like seeing these posts, or like
So,
do you feel like about like people hopping onto it, or
so I feel like it's the same thing with basically whatever like social movement that you have. And I'm not gonna lie, like it's not just for non-black people. Black people have it hard too. So like when black people start claiming Black Lives Matter, some of their friends, like I've had black people coming to me and being like, not necessarily why are you being so vocal about it, but more like, oh, um, are you sure you're like fighting for the right thing? I think we should focus on like employment rates, and we should focus on this, and we should focus on that. Black Lives Matter is just like, I don't know, like you're mistaking, that's not the right fight, etc., etc. So it's the same with every like really social movement that you have to be like aware that obviously people are going to come to you and be like, oh, you're faking it, or like you're fake a lie or whatever. But then I guess it's just like in time, like how consistent you are with it. So it doesn't matter whether you started claiming that yesterday or 5 years ago. It's how truthful you are in it, I
Yeah.
guess. And I always say like the later is better than never. Like if I mean, so it doesn't really matter if you just found out about it, and that's the whole point of like this whole process of Black Lives Matter is that we kind of like enlightening all this stuff like um everything that's happening not only in the United States but happening to the black community worldwide. And even if people have to find out just today, I have friends, I know people that have been so kind of like blind to it, and not necessarily because they wanted to be blind to it, but because the system itself is making everyone blind about it, and included black people. So no matter when you start realizing things, um, I think it's still important to like keep spreading it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A matter of you've learned, and then you have to unlearn, and then you have to relearn.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a really like interesting process that I've seen a lot of people like using and stuff. And obviously, it's not just relevant to what's happening like Black Lives Matter and stuff, but kind of like it kind of relates to everything here today. It has to do with social status. It has to do with politics. It has to do with economics, like with the system we're living in today. It has to do with beliefs and sexual orientation. It has to do with gender
Yeah.
identity, to religion, and so many stuff that you need yourself as a citizen of the world. You can be the most introvert person, the most extrovert, the most like reserved, or whatever is your position in the society. You have this uh, you have to you have to care for the rest of humanity because you're one of them and you're in this humankind together. So I believe that this unlearning what you've learned and doubting everything if it doesn't make sense and if it's not right is the right thing to do today. Yeah.
Practicing empathy.
Yeah, and like you said, like even if you hopped onto it like yesterday, I think it's better to speak up than to never say anything and just keep
Yeah.
silent about it. And as you go, you might say the wrong things, whatever, but it's a learning process for everyone. So
Yeah.
I don't think you should be so. If you're like watching this and you're like, I'm not sure if I should speak up. Speak up. You know, a
Hmm.
voice is a voice, and it'll amplify
Yeah.
millions of
And
voices
you
that
clearly
need
did
to
it.
be heard.
You clearly did on a daily because I feel like as obviously as human beings we kind of like short termists, so we want the results right now. We want the results yesterday for something we've launched right now, and it's always the same. So we're like, oh my god, people are not reacting, people are not learning, people are not this and that. But honestly, since it's happened, since this whole like Black Lives Matter movement has like basically bloomed, you've seen a shift, me personally, and I think that's where it starts. I always say the same, like when it comes to like huge crisis that you have like facing in the world and stuff. I think the best impact is the impact you can have on the little things
Yeah.
in your daily life, and the people you close to and the people you talk to, the
Yeah.
people that are like regular to you. And I've seen this change in people I talk to, people I'm not necessarily friends with, but that I see on Instagram, that I see here and there. And this little change is already so important. And I think the danger is that today, a lot of people consider that if the change is not huge, then there's no change at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we should not be
Little things
fooled by that.
accumulate.
Yeah. Over time.
Yeah.
And I think it's the whole people thinking they have to approach this in a perfect way. There's a perfect
Mm.
way to show everyone that I am anti-racist. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's really scary and it's a fearful thing for them. It's like, well, if I can't show everyone that I'm anti-racist in the most optimum way possible, then I should just be quiet. But
Mm.
yeah, like you both have been saying,
Yeah.
a voice is a voice, and amplify black voices,
Yeah.
amplify these voices. Cool. All right. Oh, notification, Mr. Popular.
Sorry.
But
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for that one. Do you want to move on to the next
yeah,
question?
we're gonna move on to the second question. So, second question is: are there any differences in your experiences as a Black person in France and in Australia?
And what are those differences? Have you noticed anything? Have you had any experiences or situations or things you just remember particularly that you'd like to share with us?
Okay. I think the first, like the way I addressed it, the more logically when I got here. So I got here the first time I got in Australia was 2016. So I was an exchange student, but in Melbourne. So I spent like a year in Melbourne before going back to France, doing my masters, and coming back to Sydney in 2019. So I've already like asked myself like those type of questions. I think the first way I addressed it was more demographically. So France has a huge colonial past. It's colonized the entirety of West Africa, some countries in East Africa, some in the southern continent, and probably like all of North Africa. Well, most of the countries in North Africa were like ended up being departments of France, and a few countries in the West Indies. Anyway, France has a huge past. So obviously Afro descendants, we're a lot in France. It's like we're a lot. So while I'm living in France is something a lot of Black folks can relate to. And there's obviously racism, there's obviously police brutality. You've had a few demonstrations happening like the last few weeks because like 4 years ago there was a guy named Adama Traore, and is like it was one of my brother's friends. So it's like he got killed by the police, and they never had justice for that. And it's been happening and happening. They've been marching every year for that. And finally this year, so like literally like 1 week after what happened to George Floyd, 1 week after, they had the expertise saying that, oh, finally it wasn't sick and it's actually a murder. So yeah, so honestly, like especially right after what happened with like George Floyd and all the Black Lives Matter movement, it's been going pretty crazy as well in France. And obviously those are topics that everyone feels connected to. Obviously you have two narratives. You have those that decide to be blind to it and be like, yeah, no, it doesn't exist that much, and like, yeah, and just people that kind of face it every day. So it goes without saying in France. Here in Australia it's different because demographically there's a few Black people. There's such a few of us. It's I was thinking of it as well when I saw like the dance scene, and I was having this conversation with a friend of mine telling me how the Black community was underrepresented when it came to like the dance community in Sydney. But at the same time, I agree. But I was like, to be very honest, the amount of Black dancers that you have in like the dance community, or that agree to get into the dance community, obviously we can talk about it like afterwards. But like, it's not, there's not a lot of people. You know what I mean? So the population overall here in Australia is not kind of like sensitized to those issues because they basically don't see that many Black people, and they don't see what they face every day. So they can't really apprehend or comprehend what they're going through, and they can't really help them in that way. So basically, I feel like you'd need people to educate you the rough way, or you'd have to be like so open to what's happening outside of Australia, focus on what's happening in the United States, in Europe, etc. But even then, you're gonna be like, a lot of people, and it's fair enough, I'd say, but a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, but what's happening in the United States is so different. America and Australia are so different, and that's very true. But at the end of the day, what Black people are facing in the United States is like, we have the same rhetoric everywhere. So there's the same rhetoric in France, in Europe, and probably the same here in Australia. But because demographically there's not as many Black people you have here than in Europe or America, it's kind of like the experience is always going to be different. But when it happens, it's going to be as hurtful, but it's still going to be different and not as much, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Do you have any?
I was just digesting. I was just like, just keep talking, Tony. Just keep talking. No, it's lovely because it's just, yeah, like we were saying, lived experiences. And so, for example, like someone like me, I'm Indigenous First Nations people. I'm also Maori, and I'm also Asian, and I'm also white,
Mm.
but I'm never black enough, I'm never brown enough, I'm never Asian enough, and I'm never white enough. And so I've always had to navigate this really awkward
Identity crisis.
yeah, really this really awkward space. And because as a kid growing up, I never like understood why kids would make fun of me and call me a kiwi fruit. And then I never understand why they'd always ask if I'm from China, because I never really understood my identity as a child. And so I kind of was always in this limbo. Whereas for someone like you, there is the one way you would be treated, if that makes sense. And so you don't get to sit in that limbo. You just had to experience this, and it's something I won't ever get to experience. And so I just like listening to you. I'm just like digesting it, and it's really powerful, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I feel like, once again, correct me if I'm wrong. I can't really speak on, like on your behalf as well, but I feel like, given what you tell me about like your background and stuff, people would still be able to like give you the benefit of the doubt at the end of the day. So be like, oh, if she's not this or that, like, okay, I'll make her that. Like, for example, Asian people, when you're a kid, you're kind of dumb, so you say whatever stuff that your parents tell you. And
Kids
you
are cruel,
spit it
bro.
out. And and you're just like, okay, she kind of looks Asian to me, so she's gonna be Asian, and I'm just gonna like deny whatever background she has on top of that. She's just gonna be Asian to me, and other people are gonna be, oh, she's just gonna be Maori to me, and other are gonna be like, oh, she's gonna be this First Nation to me. But like you say, like when you're black, there's literally just like one answer, and this answer is so filled with so many stereotypes and misconceptions and representations that you don't really have like a way out. You see what I mean? So I really don't know how to explain that. It's been embedded in the way I have to behave and protect myself socially. But there's a lot of times where I want to scream against racism or against things that are happening to me daily. But first of all, it's really tiring because I feel like screaming today will mean I have to scream tomorrow and the day after, and I can't just live a life like that. And on the other hand, you'll always have people telling you, I don't know, I feel like you're doing too much. It's not that bad. It's not this. It's not that, and kind of like negating whatever you're going through. And once again, it's not just gonna be non-black people. It's gonna be your own peers sometimes that are gonna be like, I'm black too, but I haven't experienced that, and which is something fair enough too. I come from a family with like 5 brothers on top of me. I'm the youngest one, so obviously growing up, we've grown up in the suburbs, and I was the youngest, so my brothers always protected me from this side of where we live, where we came from. So I never had to experience anything that was related to drugs, anything that was related to weapons, that was related to violence, etc. But they themselves experienced it. So even though my experience has nothing to do with something as violent as them, it still exists and it's still valid. Even though I'm black and I didn't experience exactly the same thing as them, it still exists, and they still had to face, and I faced it too, but to a lesser degree. But we still had to face, as a community, as a whole, this racism like every day, and all this prejudice and everything of that sort. Yeah. So once again, I think Black Lives Matter is so important, not only by the hashtag, but by the spirit of it. So basically, you have to wake up Black Lives Matter and eat Black Lives Matter and shower Black Lives Matter and dance Black Lives Matter, and not necessarily put like a black picture on your Instagram every day, or putting the hashtag every day, or doing that kind of stuff. It's just literally just being aware. And I think being aware is already a good start, because once you know, then you're able to achieve so much, because you're gonna change the way you act and the way you talk to people and the way you listen to people when they have
100%.
things to tell you. So
Yeah, I agree that like from knowledge stems action. Like before you can do anything, you have to understand the reasons behind the movement, why it's happening, what you can do, what people are saying. Then from that, you are making informed decisions, and even what you say. Okay. Even what you say, like you said, is more informed, and the more you know, you can affect the people around you. I really agree with what you said earlier, where you said like the small things, like just the people in your own immediate circle, that's where you should start from. Yeah, like you said, don't go for the big picture. Like
Yeah.
that's like too much for one person to handle. Start with small things, talking to your parents, to your friends, and just creating conversation.
Yeah.
You don't even have to like educate them. Just create conversation around
Yeah.
the topic. I think that's already a great way to introduce people to the movement. Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty, well, thank you for that. Are you all good to move on? Also, side note, Ash says she misses you. Everyone's watching this.
You're gonna make me cry on camera right now. I was like,
Everyone's watching this, and like, what did she say? She was like, "I miss your presence, Tony," and Jackie was like, "Come back, bitch."
Everyone wants you back.
I know. Even Bev's at the dining table, and she's like,
tell
"Come
the
back."
government to let me back. Tell the government.
Yeah, you gotta tell Miss Rona her time's up. You
her.
need to come back.
Tell her. Tell people in Victoria to act the fuck up. Literally,
Victoria, get your shit together.
get your stuff. Exactly my point. Oh my
Oh,
God.
okay, so we've had a couple more people tune in. So for those who've just tuned in, this is Tony, and we're interviewing him today. And this live will be saved on our Facebook page. So please rewind back after we're done to watch all the things that you missed. And if you have any questions, please write them in the comments, and we'll address them at the end when we have a Q&A, a little quick Q&A with Tony. All right, so we'll move on to the next question, if that's okay for you. Yeah, we're not going to do that right now. So, what kind of long-term shift do you think the civil rights movement will lead to? And have you seen any changes already? So you have briefly mentioned this, but what kind of long-term shift do you think will be like the end result? And another good question to kind of bring along with this is, do you think there will be a massive shift in our lifetime? So for example, like, it sounds a bit morbid, but like, generally we may move on between the ages of like 70 to 90, whatever. So do you think there will be a massive civil rights movement shift in this time that we are still here?
Yeah. So the question is really hard.
deep.
Like, you can't really be objective on that kind of question because I was seeing this tweet the other time where the girl said that people have been fighting for that. Like, personally, my dad's grandpa was a slave himself, and obviously people at his time were fighting to abolish slavery back in the days, like in the French regime, and then their sons and daughters had to do the same, and then their grandsons and granddaughters had to do the same, and then my parents' generation had to do the same, and then we're doing the same right now. And what we're thinking is, oh my God, it's going to bring like such a big change, and we're finally getting out of here. We're finding a way out. But that's the same thing that everyone said before us. So if you're being completely objective on here, you're going to ask yourself, what's going to be the difference? What's really going to be the difference? And when you see that, I don't know, you still have people being really oblivious to that, and if not oblivious, being just jerks and be completely like hateful and racist and all that kind of stuff. And when you see that some of our presidents are just fueling this rhetoric and being just completely hateful, you're really asking, the people that should be helping us are not the ones doing it. So how do we find a solution? And that's when I think I go back to what I said earlier. That's when I believe small change is the best change, because my dad's generation and my granddad's generation and so on and so forth, everything they did was it was on such a big scale that whoever was in power and did not want to follow up just didn't follow up, and it kind of broke everything. But on the small scale that we have today, that we're able to communicate on with like social media, etc., if you bring awareness and if you educate, and it's not necessarily like educating people and going straight up in their face and telling them what they should do, what they should not do, is making them aware so that they find a way for themselves to understand what's happening and making a change for themselves, and then them making a change to people, to people they know, and then the people they know to people they know, etc. So I think that's our biggest strength today, is that we're so connected today. now, is it gonna be? It's a really tough question. Honestly, I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon, but it'd be really, really regrettable if you had to give up. And I think what history tells us is not necessarily to stop at some point and have like a tea time, like a big event. But I think it's the process, like it's the journey that's important. It's like the fact that we all thriving to like having a more equal society, and not necessarily putting a bill out and then uh, passing a law and then doing this and doing that, and just like specific points. It's not necessarily like the specific points that matter. It's literally the long road, because it's a long road. And I think the most important is how we're gonna pass from generations to generations this understanding and this knowledge. So obviously our generation is gonna be really enlightened about that, but then
Yeah.
if we're gonna like grow, like have kids, and they're gonna grow up and we're gonna do the same mistakes that our parents did, uh with like inter-community like hatred and stereotypes, I don't think it's gonna help at all.
So I think a big part of that in the education process is like the question is a lot of people are bringing up lately that for example in the Australian school system they need to be teaching a lot more about our indigenous land and the correct history of this country, and it's something that is actually like selective. So for example, if you were lucky enough to have a great teacher who wanted to educate you on that, then they would. So I found in a conversation that Jamie Jazz, B-boy Jamie, yeah, so he put up.
They're in the same crew.
Oh shit, yeah. Look at my uneducated ass. But yeah, so he posted up a status and it was really nice, and it created a conversation between a lot of other people in the comments, and we're all talking about, what did you learn in school? Did they teach you that in school? Oh no, they didn't teach me this in school. I don't remember having these conversations in school. And it kind of brought up the conversation of, if the education system is going to fail us in that aspect, then everyone needs to bring it back to themselves. We can teach ourselves. We have the resources, we have the people, we have the information. And it becomes the whole, there's no excuse anymore other than
Yeah.
you wanting to keep the curtains in front of you and stay behind it. And so
It's like up to you to make the choice
yeah,
to be
and
educated.
it can be hard for a lot of people, but yeah, sorry.
When growing up, so my background is like, my mom is from Congo, so it's like like in Central Africa, and my dad is from the West Indies, so like French Caribbean towards like Central America. And growing up, obviously they always told us about like racism. They always told us about the condition of black people living in the Caribbean and in Africa. And me and my brothers and my sister were really um not necessarily vocal about it, but we were really aware of it. And when you grow up, you assume that the knowledge you have, every other kid should be having the same. So every time I was at school and I was not being taught anything about the history of Caribbean or about like colonized countries, I was like, but you know what? It's all right because I know it. So every other kid should be knowing it. And the more you grow up, the more you realize that, in conversations, people start saying like nonsense stuff. And first thing you want to do is just like come for the next. But then you're like, wait, hold on. We don't have the same background. So it's only fair enough if they don't have the information now. But then it's the same with everything. The second I tell you that you don't have a knowledge on something, if you choose not to educate yourself, then the problem is on you. You see what I mean? So if you don't know, you don't know. If you don't know that you don't know,
Then you
it's just like
fucking
logical.
know.
You don't know. But yeah, as soon as you get the information, if you choose to not dig into it, then I guess it's on your side. But for a lot of for a long time, I was like, you know what? If they don't want to educate themselves, it's on them. But then you realize that if they actually don't educate themselves, the blame is still going to be on you because you didn't put in the work to educate your peers, because that's our mission today. It's not just I have the knowledge, God bless, and if they don't have the knowledge, too bad for them. I have the knowledge, God bless, and they're gonna have the knowledge too, because that's what's happening today. That's how we're shifting towards a more equal society. we can't let people behind. That's just not what's happening, whether they like it or not. And then they can keep on being racist and hateful, but whether they like it or not, they're gonna know. So every time someone says something hateful or racist, we're just gonna educate them, list the facts, and then, and then they choose whether or not they want to follow that narrative, or if they just, they do them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't fight hate with hate. Fight hate with
Never.
love, with education,
And facts.
with the
Love.
facts. Yeah. Well, I want to go backtrack a little bit. How you were talking about, like, you don't think that, things will have a great deal of shift anytime soon. I do agree in that because I recently watched the documentary on Netflix, 13th, and they're saying how, like, oppression has never left. It just came in different forms over the years. Slavery, Jim Crow, Reagan, and now, like, we have fucking Trump. So, like, Lord, I'm sure in some way or form it's gonna just continue to stay.
Yeah.
But I think the difference is how we as a community, a global community, how we react to it and how we talk about it is going to change, and that's what's important. I definitely think that the system, the oppression is always gonna have some way. Fucking devil is gonna, like, somehow, like, come into our lives, but you have the power to be like, no, like, we have to talk about it in a different way, know. So yeah.
13th in that way was really, really hitting the spot, because you really enlightened how this narrative is somehow always going to be here. But what's different than the kids that we have is how differently we're going to respond to that. And I think it's really bad to say things like that, and kind of like it comes out of like a pessimistic, I'd say, point of view. But in order to bring the light, you kind of have to fight an evil at some point. So you can't be fighting nothing and then expecting people to become better. You have to have racist people, you have to have hateful people, you have to have people that just like prevent you from reaching this equity, and like, you see what I mean? So as long as we have these people, it kind of like becomes our fuel to be better and become better and say better and listen better, etc. So I think it's just, once again, it's a journey. I think it's never going to be one point in time where racism doesn't exist anymore, and where the system is finally not necessarily on our side, because we're not even asking for supremacy. We're just literally asking for the same damn rights.
Asking for equity.
So, equity, literally.
Honestly,
so I don't even think it's going to reach that point, but it's just, are we going to keep on fighting? And something I think people need to realize, and they were mistaken about, is a lot of people seeing the Black Lives Matter and how it happened, like back in time. So you always had, like, I don't know, hearing in the news someone that died because of police brutality, and then all of a sudden Black Lives Matter just pops out again, and then for 2 weeks, and then he dies, and then he pops out again like 4 months later, etc. It's always the same. But I feel like the biggest difference is that people back then thought that an immediate response was the solution, and I think that now they're starting to understand that it's a lifelong process, and it's like a lifelong fight that you have to pull out.
100%. Should we move on to the next question?
And before we move on to the next question, I would like everyone to look up the differences between equality and equity.
Yes. I was actually gonna say that too. I was like, there's like a really good like little illustration, like of like, should I just explain it? I don't know if I should explain it. Should I explain it? I'll explain it. So I'm just gonna put it in like different terms, not gonna talk about it like too much in the Black Lives Matter aspect, but imagine you have a tall person and a short person trying to reach the same apple on a tree. Equality would be giving the same ladder, same height, everything to these two people, but the short person will still reach less than the tall person, right? And that's equality. You just give them the same amount of tools, same type of tools. But equity is giving the short person the slightly taller ladder so they can reach the same height, essentially. So you're giving the appropriate tools to different people so that they could reach the same heights, if that makes sense. So it's not about giving the same tools, but it's about giving the appropriate tools for everyone to reach the same place. Yeah.
All the different intersectionalities within each individual as well.
I don't know if that made sense. If it doesn't make sense, just ask.
Y'all
or
can Google
look
it.
Yeah,
Y'all can look it up.
But that's kind of like
actually learned all
how I
that
understood it.
process at like school. A lot of people, I feel like a lot of people are bitter when you highlight this type of like considerations. They're like, oh no, we should give exactly the same ladder to everyone.
That's not how it
and
works.
we're not doing this. And you're like, well, if at the first place everyone had the same chances, then maybe we would give them the same ladder. But it's not the case. The system is literally against us. And as I say, us is like literally every black and indigenous and people of color. So you can't just even think of giving the exact same tools to everyone, because before giving the tools, you kind of deprived our communities from tools they needed to reach that point. So apart from talking about like a short person or a tall person, it's as if, I don't know, you have cars, everyone has cars, every community has cars, and then they reach a wall, and obviously to climb over that wall and keep going on their path, they need the ladder. And then when they get on the ladder, people are going to be like, oh, let's give everyone the same ladder. And obviously it doesn't work, because before that you did not even give the proper pieces and the proper tools for the cars to properly function. So fix that part first, allow the cars to be identical, and then we're gonna give everyone the same ladders. But since it's not the same stuff, since the system benefits people that have nice cars and lets us with the dirt of the dirt, it just
Like
can't
some
happen.
cars ain't even running. Like
They ain't going nowhere.
We have to push the damn car. It doesn't
You
have an
do.
engine.
like fix the wheels.
And
Literally.
I guess
Yeah.
for a lot of people, it sounds a lot easier than it actually is. And so hopefully everyone's taking a lot out of this interview, because this is very powerful stuff. So thanks for everybody joining in at the moment, and whoever watches it further on. Are you okay to move on to the next question, Tony?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go, Tiff?
So next question is, what do you think of like people fundraising for Black, Brown, Indigenous, people, color charities? Because
Do you want me to give that example?
Yeah, because she had an example. That's why we came up with this question. So she's going to talk about it.
So there was a dance community that taught some workshops, and they fundraised an amazing amount of money. They fundraised about $16,000. This was overseas in the US. Now, what happened was the person who had organized these workshops was a white man, and he was promoting the event and saying it was such a wonderful experience. Thank you to everyone who came. We fundraised $16,000, and it is going to these 3 charities, which were for example, like supporting black businesses, supporting black and indigenous women over in the US. And there was a third one that I've forgotten what it was. And he also posted the receipts of making these donations. Now, something that I had read in the comments and learnt is that because of this white man posting the receipts and hiring majority white dance teachers, it was very self-centering, not actually accomplishing what the movement needs or wants. And it's kind of like, look, I did my bit. I fundraised some money. Here you go. I've done my part. And so we wanted to know, what your thoughts are on people fundraising for charities, because obviously we need to be amplifying black voices. We need to be amplifying everything that they haven't been given. And so it was a really interesting thing to see, and because it's the whole conversation as well of, well, they're trying to help, they're trying to do their bit. But then, for example, if you are an ally, you don't need to say that you're an ally. If you are donating money, you don't need to post receipts that you're donating money. You're doing the work. But then there was the other conversation of, well, he's just trying to show where people's money is going and to prove that he is putting this money to where he says it's going. So it was a very interesting
dilemma kind of
situation.
So
it was very interesting to see. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Sorry, it's a big one.
No. So I believe when it comes to, so I feel like it was kind of like the immediate response what we had after like George Floyd's death, petition and donation. And the sad part of it is that people kind of like a lot of people kind of rushed into it without necessarily understanding how important it was. So obviously, if you understand everything it means, just go for it and keep donating and keep signing petition, especially petitions for me, because I believe that petitions really make like the global community so vocal about a matter. And at some point, public authorities and governments and all that stuff can't just be blind at that. If you have, I don't know how many, like million people signing a petition, you can't pretend like it doesn't exist. So it's gonna have an actual impact on politics and policies. So it's gonna be so important. When it comes to donations, you have to understand what it means. What it means is basically benefiting black businesses, benefiting indigenous businesses and housings, and benefiting people of colors businesses and everything people have been through and everything they've been robbed from
Mm.
by this systematic oppressing system. So that's what it means. If you're just giving the money for the sake of it and not necessarily like looking at what it's benefiting and putting yourself in a position of a savior, often a
Yeah.
lie, and just trying to showcasing that you gave, I don't know, $50 or like $100, then honestly you could be giving 1 million. If you don't understand why you're doing it for, there's no point. Just keep your money. You see what I mean? So another way of being in that line of like donating money is basically going to a shop owned by a black person, going here in Australia to a shop owned by an indigenous person, and that's how you benefiting and you're contributing to actually giving back this power that's been robbed from our communities. And I believe that is the best way. Now obviously you're still gonna have this um uh like GoFundMe's and like donation systems like being out and about, and it's still important like on a individual aspect. I've seen a lot of like our trans sisters and brothers. I've seen a lot of like people that really need it and they don't have the support. And what's really important in that donating money is not necessarily because you're going to help someone achieve something that's really personal and that you have no business in. It's because those people from your community cannot access that. They don't have the right to go for a surgery. They can't transform, they can't transit into a gender to another because the power in place doesn't support them. That's the core of the problem. It's not necessarily that I want to transition into a woman to just help me. It's just that the government is not helping me to transition into a woman, and I should have this right too. And that's the reason why we're donating. And that's the reason why there's
Yeah.
money at stake. And if you don't understand all of that, then I feel like you're doing it wrong. But once again, we go back to like what we've said at the beginning. Is there really like a right or wrong response to all of that? Everyone is building at their own pace. And as long as it's genuine and truthful, I think it's all that matters because it's still going to be a little help, but it's still going to be a help. I mean, so yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I'm just like digesting and just like looking at you in awe. I'm like, wow. Look at him go.
No.
No, it's
Also,
great.
I'm really trying to say as well that obviously we have to think in terms of community. Like me personally, I have to think in terms of like black community, but it's so much that the black community is going through worldwide that I can't even fathom.
Yeah.
I think we have it. We may have police brutality. We may have we may be like racially profiled. We may be in systems that don't benefit us, but we still. It's sad to say that. I always hate this narrative where you say, "Oh, they're basically whipping us," but they give us food. You know what I mean? In other like in Africa, in most countries over there, the black community is having it harder because obviously you have poverty, you have so many issues tackling, you have like political disorders, you have, and on top of that, you still have a system that profits those that are gonna come to your country and loot, and the past colonizers, neo colonizers, and stuff. So obviously, you have to think in terms of community, and I think this Black Lives Matter movement should make us understand that it's not just in the shape that we have with George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or yada yada. It's not just black people being brutalized and killed by the police in the United States. It's people being brutalized and killed by the police in every country, and it's every black person being denied their rights solely because they're black. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. So now, I just every time you finish speaking, you just got to give me 5 seconds. It's just I got to digest it. Oh no, it's just powerful stuff. Because as much as we, educate ourselves, have these conversations with those around us, those close to us, it's just when it's lived experiences and just you're very eloquent when you speak, and so just understanding and digesting it is just very powerful. So I'm kind of
You know,
just
to be honest, I've had, especially because I've been here in Melbourne for like maybe like 3 months or so, and I have French, like French speaking family here, so I speak a lot of French, and I tend to like, I feel like I'm losing my English or whatever. So I was like,
Nah, you
oh,
still
I'm
got
gonna be
it.
able
You got it.
to be able to speak or whatever during like the live. And I think more than like being eloquent, I take the compliment, it's really nice, but more than being eloquent, I've had a lot of people telling me, "Oh, you're really passionate about that. You're really passionate about this and stuff." When you talk about it, I was meeting my best friend the other time that's here in Melbourne, and we talked about it, and he was like, "Damn, we never had this conversation because what? Like, I never knew like it really touched you like that." And honestly, when he told me that, that's when I realized that he actually did. Because as a black person, if you live it every day, you become numb to the pain, and you just like whatever. It's just like, it's how it has to be, I guess. Since I've been living like that for 24 years, and my parents before me, and my grandparents, and my great grandparents, I guess that's just how we have to have it. And when you realize the suffering, and you realize that other people don't have it that way, you start wondering things, and you're like, okay, it really needs to change, because there's no way other people are living normal lives, and we still have to fight for things that are like basic, like so basic, like honestly, like I would, some people even would look at me, and once again, even black people, I'd be fighting for stuff, and even black people would be looking at me like, it's not worth it. I'm like, this is so worth it. Like, people just, I don't know, they undermine the impact of microaggressions
yeah.
and how it builds up to such a systematic violent system against black people. And yeah, it's just, I guess it becomes real because it is real. So that's what allows me. I just speak like basically, yeah, facts, I guess. Like
Yeah.
what's
You only
basically
spit
happening.
facts, Tony.
Yeah, what you said about microaggression, I think that's so tricky because at least with like outright racism, you can identify and fight it like straight on, head on. But with microaggression, it's just so embedded in everyday life that it's like, how the fuck do I like deal with this?
And
It's like it's become socially acceptable for a lot of people to do things and say
yeah,
things that
so
if you
it
said something
really
back,
is.
the
I think
sorry,
that's the biggest issue right now. Oh, sorry, you wanted to say
no, no,
something
no,
else.
no.
Sorry.
Continue.
Okay.
No, you go.
I think that's the biggest issue right now, is that when you see people like George Floyd being murdered, 90% of people are going to be like, this is bad. You're still going to have the 10% of people being like, I
What?
feel like
What did
maybe
he
he
do?
had like a disease, or I don't know, like he resisted arrest or whatever. You still
Or
going to have
like, oh,
people like
he's a
denying.
criminal. He deserved it. Some
Yeah, he's
shit
a
like that.
criminal anyway. Like, he was a porn star. Like this, you know what I mean? Like, where, and obviously, but like 90% of the people are going to be like, this is bad, because obviously someone dies at the end of people that should be protecting you, so you're going to point it out and be like, this is bad. But um violently, for example, appropriating culture, being disrespectful, saying the N word, thinking it means bro, Paul, or cuz, all that kind of stuff, and like going at black people. And I think the worst in all of that is denying people's experiences. So, be it black people, like people of color or indigenous people, and be like, oh, stop it. Like, you shouldn't be taking it that way. And I think we need to recenter the focus and understand that it's not like, I guess as a black person, people need to understand that it's not about them, but it's about what we tell them. So a lot of times, and I think all my life almost, and it's really tiring. And I feel like every time I tell myself I won't let it pass anymore, but I always end up doing so, because literally the entire system is against you. So you feel like if you're voicing out your concerns, you're just gonna look so foolish and so like lunatic. And so if someone says something or does something offensive and I point it out, they're just gonna look at me weirdly and be like, "Why are you offended?" And you shouldn't, this question should not even exist.
Yeah, it
Why are you
shouldn't have.
offended? If you're offended, you should accept that you've offended someone and work towards understanding them better. That's how it should be working. That's how it works. I don't know, if you're at work, that's how it works too. So if someone, I don't know, didn't take your remark on, I don't know, their reports that they wrote you, or like they did like a work force or whatever, they're just gonna take the blame, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, I've been offended." They're gonna work it out, and eventually they're gonna manage it, and it's gonna go for the better. But every time it has to do with racial issues, cultural issues, people are always gonna be like, "Oh, the system and the society is on my side, so it's socially acceptable to call you the N word. So why are you gonna complain? It's socially acceptable to call you names, or to I don't know, to like portray your hair or the way you dress or your lips or your features or whatever, and say this and that about that, because you don't have the right to be upset about it, because the system is not on your side. And that's the hardest part. That's something people are not going to point out. And that's the hardest way, because people in their own families and their own circles are not going to have the strength to stand up against it. And I know it because I not always have the strength to stand against it, and I'm the first one to be concerned. And it's just really hard. And I don't know. I feel like that's the reason why we're saying that it's not going to change anytime soon, because, like you said, Tiff, it's embedded in like black folks grow up thinking that all of that is right. You have black little girls growing up thinking they're ugly just because they're black, and thinking their hair is ugly because it's not straight and it stands up on the hair, on the head. And it's just, it's kind of hurtful when you hear it and when you see it. But then you're like, should we just like, I don't know, accept it? Or I don't know. You don't. It's hard to see a way out when literally everyone and everything is against you. It's just really, it's really hard. I don't know if you can understand like this type of like
Kind of.
configuration you're in. It's, I don't know. It's as if you're like in an assembly with like 1,000 people. Everyone says left and you say right, and you know that right is the right option, but everyone says left, and you're like, maybe I should be saying left. And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's, I don't know. It's just, yeah.
Sorry, that was just very like real and very like heartbreaking.
Yeah, it hit my like it hit me in a spot. Like I was just like, fuck.
And I hope everyone watching is getting a lot out of this, because this is stuff that you can carry with you and carry in your mind, and just to remember.
And like going back to what Tony said, like when someone tells you the experience, sometimes just be quiet, listen.
Yeah, you
Even
didn't ask
just
for your
listening.
opinion.
Yeah, they don't. They're telling you the problems. Like he said, don't deny them of their experience. Don't be like, why are you telling me this? No, like
Yeah.
they're telling you, just listen and reflect on it. You're not gonna be like, if your friend told you, yo, my grandmother just died the other day, you won't be like, the fuck, why are you telling me that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, just be sensitive, be empathetic, be sympathetic. Like, yeah,
And
just
apart from
listen.
that, apart from just giving out the information, if someone tells you further like how they feel about it, if your grandma dies and suddenly you're like, hey, I'm sad because my grandma died, you ain't gonna be like up in their face and be like, you shouldn't be sad, don't be sad. I'm not sad, but it's not your grandma. You see what I
They'll be
mean?
like, my grandma's still here. Why are you telling me this? Like, duh.
Tiff's getting shook. Tiff's getting worked up. Yeah, I think it's just, it's been also quite, because for example, you know, we've all been sharing information, we've all been talking about it, we've all been posting, and it's the whole like, you know, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but it's kind of like, well, for example, out of us three, yeah, we're going to be tired, but you don't get the
Yeah.
break.
It's like, how tired will they be? Like, it only bombarded us for like what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but for you guys, it's like every day, every single day of your life.
Yeah.
It's like people don't understand that. Like,
And it,
Oh my God.
it's frustrating, and it's
Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, when all of that happened, like following George Floyd's death, at first my response was I had a really like sarcastic response to it. So
Mm.
trying to call out whoever was being ignorant and hateful and racist about it. So maybe like within the first week, 10 days ish. And then really the tiredness just caught my ass. And I just, I don't know, maybe you realize or not, whatever, but like I literally took Instagram off my phone. I was like, I can't do that stuff anymore because it's not necessarily that you want to go on social media and express things. Like, I don't even feel like going on social media and expressing things anymore. It's just that you're gonna see everything that happens, and it's just tiring because you're like, we're being treated so differently and violently, and still when we face something so inhuman and so like hard, people are still gonna throw in our face the fact that we shouldn't be feeling that way and negating our feelings. And I was just like, "Ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot."
Yeah.
I'm gonna. I withdrew from all of that. I was like,
Backed it
yeah,
up.
So that's another thing. I feel like social media sometimes can be a lot. So if you need to take the time to just recuperate, to let just take care of your mental
Keep your
health as well.
pace. Keep your
Yeah.
pace.
yeah.
It's not worth
So-
it sometimes. Like it's really just not worth it going to war with someone you don't even fucking know over, like on the keyboard, and you've never even met them before. It's not worth it.
Another question that is linked to this. This is just out of my own curiosity. Have you, due to having these conversations, have you unfortunately, I don't know, how do I say this? Lost any friendships or had any quarrels with family members throughout this? And if so, could you give us an example?
So once again, as I said earlier, like being numb to all this like pain and suffering happening, it's happened like from the early, like a really early stage when I was like really young. And it's like you grow up with people that are blatantly racist in your face, and then when you grow up enough and you start understanding things and telling them that they're wrong for that, that's when they start calling you out and saying that you've changed and that you're acting differently because all of a sudden you're standing up against something that is not right. And it's something that's just been happening, I feel, all my life. Now recently, the thing is that things have, like with social media, things have become kind of like sneakier, you see what I mean? So what I did, I have like another like Instagram account, but it's like a French account. So I made it like ages ago. It was private until like, but anyway, just a background story. And I have a lot of people from my uni over there. So I went to this really posh university. A lot of like white folks and stuff from like Paris, so like really expensive stuff and shit. And obviously a lot of people I spent 6 years at uni, so it's a lot of people I merged with. I was in a dance company over there. I made, not necessarily I'm not necessarily going to call them friends or whatever, but you get close to people eventually. You have classes with them, you go to like competitions with them and stuff and stuff, and like for 6 years, so obviously,
Acquaintances.
and sorry,
Acquaintances.
acquaintances.
Oh,
Oui, oui.
9 to 5, that's what we have to call it. And so right after what was happening, I logged on this Instagram and I was saying that literally no soul that I went to uni with was speaking about it. Like, was no one was saying crap, and I was like, wow. I was like, so did it not mean anything when I don't know, like 6 years of friendship or like 6 years of knowing each other? Was I just like someone ish and you just negated the fact that I was black and all my like all the issues I was going through, etc.? So I did a video. It was in French, but I was basically calling them out. I was like, oh, I was being really sarcastic on that, and I think that's the last thing I posted before I left social media, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I was saying how, oh, it's funny because I don't know, I spent 6 years with you guys dancing, having classes, having this, having that, and just for you at the end of the day to like negate the fact that we're suffering and we're being killed for literally existing. And the second after, you had literally the second after, you had so many of them posting, I don't know, Black Lives Matter stuff and posting like black pictures and posting this and that. And that's what I mean. It's become like so sneaky with the social media. So people are never gonna be brave enough to end a friendship or end relationships because they know that it's gonna be on them. So they'd rather be like really hypocritical on that and pretend like they care and pretend like they're hearing you, but truly it's never gonna be the same. Obviously, you read between the lines and you start understanding they're fake, they're fake, they're fake, they're fake. But at the end of the day, today it's sad. But it's now that you asked me the question, it's I feel like within the last 5 or 6 or 7 years where social media has become so important, it's so hard to really lose friends. You see what I mean?
Okay.
Because it's not socially benefiting anyone to lose friends. So if what it takes is being hypocritical and pretending like you care and that you listen, then that's what people are gonna do. And yeah, so that was a long digression, but to answer your question, basically it happened a lot back in the days because people were just blatantly racist and I could call them out and be like, okay, I'm gonna distance myself from you. But today it's really hard because you don't really know who's on your side, if
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Cool.
Especially
Thank
with all
you.
the performative posting, it's hard to tell like if they
Yeah.
genuinely mean it or like they're just posting it because everyone else is posting it.
Mm.
And doing the work behind the scenes. I'd
Yeah.
recommend everybody who's watching and who watches it in the future actually, instead of maybe Instagram's amazing. You know, you can get so much amazing information. You find so many amazing educators and people telling their stories, but also actually do your own research and not rely on what you see on your feed. Have
Yeah.
conversations with people that you know who have these lived experiences. It's so much more enriching, and I think it's really powerful to have these kinds of conversations because it will impact you directly, and especially if it's someone you can build this connection with and to really truly understand what their lives have been like. So
And also,
Yeah.
like, don't just. I feel like people are very complacent with the learning, as in they don't critically think about what they're watching. There's a lot of misinformation out
Oh,
there.
yeah.
You have to really like cross-check, read academic sources, not just like, oh, an Instagram post, I read that. Cool, watch that, and then go research about it.
Yeah.
You know?
That is so important. And honestly, so there's two things I want to address. First, this trap that we're falling in to only, I don't know, reach for mediocre sources and mediocre content and thinking that it's enough. And that is a generational problem. And it does not only have to do with Black Lives Matter, it has to do with literally everything. People need to step out of this mediocrity and reach for something that's reliable because that's only on reliable content that you can build a a like reliable change, like you see what I mean, like
Yeah.
build something like real impactful. And it's even like a trap everyone kind of like falls in. I remember I was telling you how I had like this conversation with my best friend here, and before that I was seeing him like he's not a social media guy, but I was like, oh, you know why he hasn't been like reacting that much? What does it mean? He's my best post. What does it mean? What does it mean? And I happen to have like his Netflix account, yeah. So I was checking. I was on his Netflix, and then I checked, and literally for like the past 2 weeks, all he's been doing is watching movies, documentaries on like the condition of Black people in the United States, and that's when you realize you're like, wow, there's actually other sources that are more reliable. And I'm like, this is a trap we're all falling in, thinking that we need like you said, Tiff, this really performative information and people like jotting information on Instagram and stuff. And that's also one reason why I distance myself from social media now. I'm not saying social media is bad. Like on the other hand, it's actually really good. And one reason as well is that I had a lot of people in my contacts and my community that were sharing important stuff and that would be like so positive about all of that. But the simple fact that I'm being reminded that all this suffering exists, it's the main reason why I withdrew myself. And not necessarily because I had people being hateful and racist. It's just that opening your feed and seeing, like as a black person, seeing George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and this and that, you're just like, whew, again. So you're just like, let
Reliving
me
it.
just step out of here and come back when it's sad, but when the feed goes back to normal. But then obviously, once again, it's still going to be our job to tell our friends and tell our family that they should know better and that they should say better and listen better and act better and all of that. Yeah. So I don't know if I answered.
No, that
You
was
did,
great.
you
Thank
did.
you.
Yeah, and guys, just know that like Instagram, Facebook, good place to start, but don't let it be the end all be all of your
Yeah.
information sources. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
just
think
keep
it's
that in mind.
yeah, it's important as well. Like, as much as you want to have these discussions with your BBIPOC friends, I think it's also important that the more you try to contact them, they're not. It's not their job to educate you. It's your responsibility as well, and it's
Mm.
something. So, for example, because I talked about, I'm quite naughty, so on my Instagram stories, I'll sometimes rant or express myself when I have experienced racist things happening to me.
Mm.
And I always get really mixed responses like, oh, well, you should have done this, or why did you not do this? And vice versa. And it's kind of hard. It's like, well, if this is the way you're going to respond, I just won't say anything. And I feel
Yeah.
like it's a real big issue for a lot of people because when they express themselves, they just hit back with, well, all this. Well, I didn't ask you to tell me what to do. I was just expressing how I felt, and apparently it's never good enough. And so it always makes me wonder how people look at all these interviews, look at these Instagram lives. I wonder how they actually see it. So I'm wondering, everyone watching us speak with you, Tony, right now, how are they interpreting this and what's going on in their mind? It's such an interesting thing to me. So I hope a lot of people educate themselves. And please don't just bombard Tony with a lot of things. It's also your job to educate yourselves, everyone who watches this interview. But
Like there's a lot of basic information that you really don't need to ask. Just go online, do your research.
Yeah.
Maybe more like
I
personal
honestly had-
questions. Yeah, I
I
don't know.
honestly had a lot of people right after all of this happening coming to me and telling me, "Oh, I'm really sorry about what happened," or "What should I do?" or this and that. And it's like it's. I feel like it's really genuine when they come to you and you're like, "I'm really sorry for what's happening to you." But when I think of it, I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know George Floyd. Like, we're not that close. Like, you know what I mean? So like, it's nice.
I'm sorry to laugh a
You
little.
know what I mean? Like, it's nice to say that you feel for the black community and what's happening, but at the end of the day, I'm not gonna tell you what you should do. I'm not gonna tell you go watch this documentary and go tell your racist grandmother not to call me here.
he said it.
He said what he said. Period.
It is what it is.
You know what I mean? So like, it comes from a good place, but it's part of the understanding that people should comprehend the fact that I think you've seen like this on social media, but we've talked about it, we've marched against it, we've sang it, we've danced it, and it's never been listened to because it comes from us. So at some point, we're just gonna withdraw ourselves and sit back and take a break because another trap is for black people to be exhausted, to be socially exhausted, to be politically exhausted, economically exhausted, and I think that is the biggest trap that is being put in front of us is that they want to drain us so much that we don't even have the energy to fight because no one else is going to fight for us. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's the biggest shift today is that we have the ability to not necessarily ask people as a favor, but as the right thing to do, that other people fight for us because we can't just fight for ourselves. It's whatever we do is not enough and we're not being listened to. So people who have not necessarily the biggest privilege, but still a bigger privilege than we do because we clearly don't have any, should use it and put it in the service of our cause because serving our cause is serving so many other causes, and I can't stress this enough. Black Lives Matter is so vital to everything in this society. It is so vital to social, societal, political, economic issues in the world globally. It is so important, even to the health response we have today with the coronavirus. Like Black Lives Matter is not just let's make sure that another George Floyd or Breonna Taylor doesn't happen. No, it's literally let's heal this world. It's even like environmental. Like it is so important, and people should start understanding that it's not just for us. It's literally for everyone, and we're not being like self-centered and be like, oh, can you guys only care about black people? It's literally, maybe we should start by us, because if we don't start by us, then we're never going to get anywhere in this world. Literally.
Facts.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you so much. That was just like, oh, chest.
Okay.
Are you okay for us to move on? So we have
2 more questions.
we have 2 more questions, and then we'll allow a bit of Q&A. But yeah, let's
I
go.
think in the meantime, at some point I'm going to go and fetch my charger because I have 11% right now.
Do you want to go do
Do you
that
want to
now?
get it now?
Yeah, I'll do it.
11%, Tony. Oh my gosh, you live life on the edge.
But yeah, guys, if you're watching the live right now, feel free to start like listening, like your questions or whatnot, and then we'll just go back to the comments and the Q&A section, so you don't have to like, like hardcore remember what your question is. If you have any
Yes.
questions, just let it out, just write it down, and we'll come back to it.
And I think it's really important that you guys also note we have pinned in the comments section if you would like to donate to Tony whilst he's over in Melbourne for donating his time for our interview today. You can head over to PayPal and directly donate to my account, which I will then forward to Tony. So all you need is my email address, which is jasmine.vo@live.com, and it's in the comments, okay? Oh, and he back. Oh, wait, he's plugging the charger in. He ain't back. He ain't back yet. Oh, this has been great. Alrighty, so...
Yeah, it's plugged in.
You good?
Oh, oh.
Alright. Cool, you ready for the next question? Cool. So, next question is, what are your views of white-centric dance curriculum? So I want to bring it back to like dance and like our dance community. And, like traditionally, like when you go to like university or whatever, dance curriculums are always like ballet or like contemporary, which are very like white-centric dance forms. Maybe like contemporary, not so much anymore, but ballet definitely. And it's always seen as the mother of all dances when we know it's not true.
Lol.
So like, what do you think about this?
Oh.
So it's something I never kind of like asked myself. It's always the same with everything. If you're not in the community itself, you're just gonna look at it superfluously and be like, oh, it's probably fair. It's probably like working all right. You see what I mean? And back in the days, I was obviously dancing. I had this company at my uni and stuff. And I was like, you know what? They're all into ballet and contemporary. And I personally was bringing another touch because I had this Afro-ish dancer background. So I was like, hey, you know what? I'm the asset here. So I never kind of like questioned it. You see what I mean? But when I started dancing professionally and I started seeing how things were here in Australia, because it's way more, how can I explain that? It's like you see it way more here in Australia than in France. Once again, in France, you have a lot of Black communities and North African communities, Middle Eastern, Asian communities and stuff. So honestly, over there, street dance is really big. So like we have a system for ourselves, even though you still have like schools with like a really like classical curriculum and stuff. But since we built such a strong system of street dancing, we kind of like don't want it. So it's like two systems and two narratives. So we kind of like, you live on your side. But it's really different here in Australia because I feel like there's one, like it's more like a hierarchy, is what I mean. So like obviously you have all like the street dances and stuff, but the companies and then the troops and then the theaters and then this and that, when they're gonna hire people, they're gonna be like, oh, you don't have a ballet formation, you didn't do classical styles, ew, we're not gonna take you.
Ew.
I'm like, well, you know what I mean? And I think I started having all these questions forming in my head when I got here and when I started dancing. And honestly, okay, this is really between you and me and whoever's watching this live.
It's gonna be both.
Sorry. I'm about to get real spicy.
Spill the tea, bitch.
Let's go.
When I got here and I saw the response to Afro, I was really, how can I put that into words? I was really like, do y'all know what Afro is? Like, do you pay homage? Do you respect it? Do you I mean, people were giving so little, like literally zero fucks about it. So I was like, there's something that's not right. How is an entire artistic like realm built on black and Afro heritage, and every time you have Afro descendants or black people willing to share knowledge, you always go to whoever is not black to get to take it.
Yeah.
So at first I was like, okay, you know what? Afro is not known that much. Maybe that's the reason why here in Australia, people don't necessarily go for it. But then you had non-black people teaching Afro, talking about Afro, and then everyone was up in their ass. And I was like,
Up
wait,
in their ass.
I was like, so I'm black. I come from an Afro background, and I've learned Afro. Like I didn't even learn it. I grew up with it.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm taking it today. But other people that are not black, you're gonna give them uh, this opportunity to learn from them and give them the credit. So you're participating in this cultural appropriation. And I was just like, this is a whole system where black culture and black is excellence unless it's from black people themselves. And I think I really understood it. Like the community is great, etc. Like don't get me wrong, I really love like the cine dance community. But in a lot of ways, once again, black is excellence unless it comes from black people. And that's something I really like. You really hit me here. You really did. So
Wow.
yeah.
Oh no. He's like, oh god damn, I spilled the tea. sis."
Well, I think as teachers as well, non-black teachers of who are participating and educating in this realm, it is our responsibility to pay respect and to give credit to the people who created essentially my job.
Yeah.
If it weren't for you guys,
We
I'll
wouldn't
be
have
fucking
jobs.
broke. Okay. So
And it's as simple
it's
as
so important. Yeah.
yeah, it's as simple as, for example, without black culture, I wouldn't have the best friends that I have. If it weren't for black culture, I don't think I would be dancing, right? I don't think I would experience all these amazing things in my life that have created my life and that have surrounded my life with if it weren't for black culture.
Heck, this podcast wouldn't exist if it
Yeah,
wasn't
it-
for dance and black culture. Like
100%. And
And you know what? You know what? Like the black community response is not even to say, give us back dancing, it's ours
Yeah.
now. Like we are so happy
And giving.
delighted to
Giving.
share it.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
because it's just what it is.
continue.
she was shook.
Because it just is what dance is. And we like literally just genuinely like the black community as a whole just genuinely just shares it with people thinking that everyone is just literally just gonna jam and give credit where due and respect each other and stuff. But then it's sad because it becomes a competition and it
Yeah.
becomes a competition of like appropriating whatever style. And like honestly, like I'm nothing but love. I'm not hating on
Yeah.
anyone. I'm not hating
know,
on
Tony.
anything. But it's like once again it's a system where we literally loot black people, we take everything from them and we distribute it to whoever is not black and is gonna look more appealing. There's a lot of like this big wave. So for example in K-pop, I'm gonna say like K-pop that is literally built like on a black symmetry. Literally, it's literally black culture. Like it smells black culture. It's everything black culture. But people now, like kids today, grow up and watch 1 million studio videos, and they're gonna be like, hip hop comes from there, and that's what real dance is, and they invented it. And then when they see you dancing, they're like, "Oh, you dance the Korean way." I'm like, "Excuse the fuck out of me!" Like, did you watch the color? Did you see the melanin? What do you mean?
Watch this
Yeah.
What do
melon.
you mean?
Yeah,
What do
it's
you
so
mean?
it's so problematic.
It's
like,
more like I feel like a lot of things we do, and it's our job as well as black people to we should stop fearing that people are gonna be upset or are gonna be like, ew, looking at us like side eyeing. We need to claim the fact, and not like in a self-centered way, but we need to claim the fact that guys, we put this for everyone. Let's share, but do not deprive us from something we're giving you,
Don't
because
take the ownership.
it's just gonna feed hatred and resentment. Because at the end of the day, like if I teach my Afro and I take whatever response I have from it, like in I'm trying to do my thing here in Australia with Afro and stuff, and I'm really like, sometimes you struggle, and that's the same thing for like every job. You struggle to get your cash basically, and you do your stuff, but you like it because that's your stuff. Like it really keeps you going, and then you see it's just that's just how sad it is, and you see like next door, you see someone that takes whatever you're teaching and teaches it, and it's so easy for them to get double or even 10 times the amount of stuff, like the amount of outcome you have from it. And you can't even be mad at them, but you have to be mad at the system that benefits them and that deprives you from something that you built and that you try to share with the world, and that the world just took from you and distributed to other people because it looks more appealing. Black culture looks more appealing when it's not by black people, and that's just how
Yeah, that
sad it is.
saying. You love black culture, but you don't love black people.
Yeah.
Damn.
um,
So the screen's gone all blurry. So on our laptop, you are actually very how
You're like pixelated
you're
ass.
pixelated
You look like a broccoli.
a broccoli. But on the actual live, it's fine. Alrighty, so we're going to move on to our last question before we open up a Q&A.
So the last question is, what can we do as a dance community to empower Black, brown, indigenous people of color? I know, like, we said, like, oh, like, you don't want to, like, tell people what to do. But I don't know, as a dance community, we really want to, like, support you guys and, like, do our best to accurately represent you guys as well. So let us know, like, what's up? Like, what can we do? What do you feel like we're
I think-
lacking?
And
something
be
I
real
really
about it.
liked when I got here in Australia, and obviously we don't do in France because France is like, it belongs to French people, and honestly, in a lot of situations, we just want to get out of this country. But that's another debate. Do you hear me, guys? Yeah, yeah.
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 But something I really liked coming here is like all the acknowledgement that you guys do, like at the beginning of events and stuff. And I honestly think that just having that and just saying it, I'm like the biggest believer in like the power of words, and I really think that putting out one sentence out here saying that we're here today thanks to the First Nations. We're here today. We wouldn't be here today if it was not for like the natives, if it was not for this, if it was not for that. I wouldn't be teaching you guys this if it was not for this or if it was not for that. And I think it's your job not only as a like dance teacher, but also if you want to take a class, or if you're going to an event, or if you're going to a battle, if you're going to this or if you're going to that. And it does not only have to do with just black people in general and black culture, but it's basically all this work where we dismantle misconceptions. I think that's the most important. I grew up thinking whacking and voguing were the same, and at the end of the day, they're so damn different. And you know what I mean? If you're being blind, like you know what I mean, like the more you like, if you're being blind to such small-ish concepts like that, then you're never gonna even be able to comprehend that there's a biggest picture out there. You see what I mean? So if you start telling people clearly that this is Afro, the point is not saying you can't use Afro steps in your routines. Use them, please use them, but acknowledge the fact that it's not necessarily saying, oh, so the step I'm doing is thanks to black people. No, you're just gonna say this step is Afro, this step is whacking, this step is popping technique, this step is this. The students, when they hear that, they're like, these steps come from different places. So now I understand that dance is not just a block, it's so plural and it has so many influences. And this is my job now as a student, if I'm trying not to be hypocritical with myself, to learn on that. And that's how you pass on information. It's not necessarily giving a class, teaching a class like a background, historical, geographical background every time you're having a class. It's literally, you literally say one word and P is going to merge in people's heads and they're going to be like, oh, so there's more than that. It's not just like doing the guara guara, or there's actually a name to it. Why does it have this name?
Yes.
Where does it come from? You see what I mean? So like it's little like information, and people are going to be like, okay, there's more to know about that.
Yeah, and dance teachers, again, it's your responsibility to learn these things, learn the background, learn the names, whatever. Because I think it's important that, especially when students step up to ask questions, you can provide the answers. And if in
Yeah.
that moment you don't have it, it's fine. Just go out, research, come back, let them know. This happened to me so many times as well. Like, you know, it's amazing when the student actually takes the initiative to ask questions. And I want to be there
Sorry.
to help them understand. Yeah.
Not answering is the dumbest shit ever. Like,
What
you
is
should be
that?
ashamed.
Wait, sorry, what
What
did
did
you
you
say?
say?
If a student comes to you genuinely asking a question and you don't want to answer or you feel like it's not as important, then you kind of like stop it. It's such an important dynamic. You see what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
Mm.
it is just like passing on knowledge. Like it's so important. So important.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it as well is acknowledging where you've received this knowledge. And so, for example, from a lot of people I've come across, ego does play a really big role in it. And so, just having the confidence, and for example, I feel like a lot of us are so proud to be a part of this. I'm proud to be like, well, I learnt this in Link's class when I was in like China,
Mm.
and then oh my god, I did Nastia's thing. Like, yeah, it was so cool, and I'm not embarrassed to be like, this isn't something that I made up. Because
Mm.
as much as we like to claim that this is our creative process, we've been influenced, we've been inspired, and we've
100%.
seen things, we've been shown things just out of exchanging and sharing. And I think it's something that a lot of us and a lot of people really need to keep in the back of their minds or in the front of their heads or written in front of them or on their hand or tattooed on them somewhere.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I find it's such a
Yeah.
disappointing conversation to have with some of your peers when it's like, oh, look what I made. I'm like, well, actually, I was in class with you and we did that.
Yeah. just just credit people. Just credit people.
Yeah.
It's really not that
Yeah.
hard. You're not gonna post a video that someone else made and say that, oh, I made this, huh? Like, we know that
Yeah.
people are watching. People can pick
Yeah.
that out. You know,
Yeah.
you're not sneaky. You're not smart. We know.
With the FBI.
Wow. Literally,
Yeah.
because like there's one thing like I think people don't understand the power that they have
Yeah.
as dance teachers. It's like there's one big example, and I'm stretching it to the extreme, but someone like Paris Goebel, she is globally known. Like, who has not seen her sorry video or the royal family video? Everyone has seen it. And now I'm obviously not blaming her. I'm not blaming royal family. I'm not blaming any of that. But they took um Afro steps and they took dancehall steps. Some of them were dodgily done.
Oh!
But at the end of the day, like honestly, like no shade or whatever, but at the end of the day, kids today are gonna look at this video and be like,
That's
"This
Polynesian.
comes from Paris Bubble," when this has a 5 centuries long history in this tiny village in Africa, and you're just gonna say, "Oh, Paris Gobble did it in 2014." I don't know what you're talking about.
Are you referencing the Rihanna show when she did Guara Guara? Are you referencing that?
Yeah.
Even like in yeah, the sorry
Among
video,
others.
like she used a lot of dancehall moves. So her dance is like heavily influenced by like dancehall and
Yeah.
Afrocentric like dance movements.
And which is fair
Yeah.
enough. If she had like
Yeah.
those classes, if she like took inspiration from that. I personally take inspiration for so many dance styles,
Yeah.
and I think you've seen it like battles that I've danced and
Likewise,
whatever.
likewise.
And that is not the problem. At the end of the day, if people
Yeah.
come to you and they're like, "Hey, what is that?" and you don't make yourself the effort to say, "Guys, I did not invent all of that.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that this comes from this place and this comes from that and this comes from that." But if you're just gonna throw everything and say, "Yeah, that was hip hop. That was hip hop for you lads," people are just gonna be like, "Okay, that's New Zealand hip hop." No, girl, that's gra gra from the village in freaking Ghana. I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I need
it's,
like
it's
a-
important. It's everyone's job, and I think the first thing to do is to make people realize that they have way more influence than they think they have, and they should not be. We should not be lazy. It's 2020.
Don't take
is
it
not a time
lightly.
to be lazy. It's literally not. You should acknowledge. You should like be honest and intellectually honest with what you're putting out there and what you're choosing to showcase, what you're choosing to choose. We're not like, once again, as black people, we're not telling anyone to stop using our stuff. First of all, because people are still gonna do it no matter what, and I think we're tired of calling out people for things that should not be done and that are blatantly like, kind of like appropriating, like or whatever. But anyway, but at the end of the day, we really like very much invite everyone to enjoy this culture.
Yeah.
But it is gonna be for people to take it, benefit from it without giving credit and being, because when you don't give credit, you consciously decide to harm the community from which and the culture from which you took it from, because you're gonna be like, it's like in 13th, like the documentary, they were saying how, oh, behind the scenes their goal was to deny black people from their rights, and even though the political language was pretty like smooth, and he was saying, oh no, it's just like a war on drugs, it's just like war on drugs, it's just doing this, doing that. At the end of the day, the real motive was to deprive black people from what they own. And is the same debate today. Like, if you're gonna take someone's culture and not give them credit, it's gonna be the same stuff, because you're gonna deny the fact that they own something, and it participates in being like a microaggression, because it's going to be like, oh, if I take something from your culture, then you don't deserve a culture, then you're not a thing, you're not worth the same stuff that other human beings are worth, and that's what leads to you being treated less than a human being. And so many, like, I'm reaching, but all those stuff like lead to people being brutalized by the police. It's as simple as
It's all
that. If you're gonna
interconnected.
deny
It's all
Yeah.
connected.
somebody's culture, is going to reach that point at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
It's like a ripple effect. One thing
Yeah.
you do in this
Yeah.
part of someone's life is going to have its effects
It'll travel
down the
around.
road. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for that. And so, what we'll do now
Yeah.
is we'll open up the floor in our comment section on Facebook for anybody who has any questions. But if no one has any questions, we'll let you just end it with a few little things that you would like to mention that you might have in the back of your mind, anything you'd like to share. So, everyone who's watching, we'll give you about 60 seconds. So I don't know if you've been keeping up with the comments, Tony, but when you were, what were you saying at this point?
He was spilling tea.
He was spilling tea, and then Dennis was like, "Your secret is safe with me." And then Ashley's like, "Your English is better than mine."
I'm trying to make a pause, guys.
And Jackie's like, "Amen, Tony, amen." But Ashley also commented another example, and she said, "It's like an absolute beginner going into an advanced class and given the same attention and instruction as a dancer who is a pioneer. Absolute beginners ain't gonna get anything out of that class except that they've got 2 left feet." Dancer's explanation. Haha.
That's related to the equality versus equity segment.
Yes.
Definitely.
Guys, like, give us some questions. Like, take advantage of this opportunity.
Ask Tony what his favorite food is.
There's no dumb
Like-
question. Yeah, any question. Doesn't even have to be Black Lives Matter related. But obviously, it'll be great. So, yeah.
Actually, Bev, do you have any questions for Tony? Bev's in the kitchen, guys.
What's your cookie?
What are you cooking? Bev is thinking. She's looking at us through our ring light.
How about, like, for everyone, how have you been? Because we
Yes.
feel the lack of you. Like, I need you back, Tony.
We need your energy.
I need you.
I need my damn self back too. Honestly, like, as I was telling you, like at the beginning, when I got here, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's a good opportunity to recenter myself. And it's like,
Yeah.
actually, for the first few weeks, I was really, obviously not glad that COVID existed, because people died. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take this time to breathe a bit, because I was kind of busy in Sydney just before that. So I was like, okay, cool, all Gucci. Then when I had enough time to rest, I started like heavily dancing. I was like, you know what? It's time to level up and just not waste time and get better and get better. It's been 3 months.
Honestly, how's your stamina?
I just want to get out here on the dance floor and pop this bus. Like,
Oh my God.
Oh, wait, hold on,
These
Tony.
juicy questions in
Tony.
the comments started popping up.
Okay. So let's start with Jackie's. She goes, "Are you dating anyone right now?"
Let us know.
wait.
Let us know.
Are you taking, bitch?
Who is that?
Jackie asked you.
No, Jackie, I'm not.
All right.
No.
But then Ashley continues and says, if we find you a partner, will you move back on a partner visa? We'll try and find a hot one.
Girl, find me this partner. I've been begging. I've been asking people all around and all like, I don't know.
Okay, guys, auditions next week at Crossover
Exactly.
Studio 1. Bring your best self
No,
forward.
submit your applications.
What are the criteria, Boo Boo? Let us know.
We'll submit the applications on your behalf. So give us your criteria. Go.
Okay, two things.
Truthfully.
No, two configurations. If it's gonna be like a real deal. No,
Ooh,
if it's-
listen
okay,
up.
If it's not gonna be a real deal and we're just gonna get it for like the papers and then yada yada, don't get attached. Don't get attached because
Elker? He thick.
no I'm kidding. Otherwise, I'm gonna say I just need someone that's funny. Like honestly, that's the main thing. Funny because the cooking I do her, the cleaning I do her. I do everything. I do the cooking, the cleaning. Yeah, I need
You
someone
heard
to
him.
be
You
said-
heard him. All you
I
have
need someone
to,
be
all you
funny.
need is got jokes. You only need
You need
jokes.
to entertain
Okay?
me.
No,
And
on the
when I say entertain me,
Yeah.
it's entertain me.
On the application, name, number, email, funny joke. Best joke.
Hit me with your jokes.
So, guys, you can submit applications to venus.thepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Applications close in a fortnight's time, just before the next podcast.
So like just prepare
Yeah.
a 3-minute stand-up comedy special.
Yep, and Jam Republic Sydney will hold the auditions, and we'll liaise with our the person who runs it, Ashley Go. Also, Jackie would like to add that no one is good enough for our Tony.
And she asks you, ultimate question, Melbourne or Sydney? You have 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1.
Sydney.
And-
Wait, okay. Now that the 3 seconds.
All right.
Now that the 3 seconds have passed, I can make it clearer. Melbourne has always had like a soft spot because that was the first city I got here.
Yeah, of
I
course.
have family here. I have my best friend here. I have a lot of stuff here. But then obviously Sydney, I kind of like bloomed way more in Sydney than I did.
It's 'cause we love
So it's always good to come back in Melbourne, but
Ooh, but Sydney though.
Ooh.
We'll end it on one last question, which is a nice one. So Alice asks, "What do you miss most about Sydney?"
Korean hot
Korean
dog.
food.
Honestly, like being here in isolation in Melbourne, so being deprived from literally anything because I'm not in the same city, made me question a lot of things
Yeah.
that I needed and that I miss and that I like all of that. I think the main thing is I was really like I was sometimes busy, I was sometimes worried, I was sometimes stressed because of like guys, like as a dance teacher, how like complicated it is to leave when you have to pay bills and whatever. But this carefree, this kind of like carefree attitude that you have because you're just living for like literally carpe diem. So like you're living for the present day and you're just making the most today. You're dancing your life out, you're sweating, and then you're going to bed and you're like, whew, we'll see what tomorrow has to offer. And then eventually you wake up, you have good or bad surprises, but you're always thriving for more. And I think with the community, with the Korean chicken, with with the cute people as well, like
Oh.
happening around the city. You know what I'm talking about?
Disclose.
Like,
That's too much tea, guys. Too much.
yeah, I miss it, and I can't wait to go back at it. I can't wait to go back. So hopefully very soon. But
Oh, yay! Alrighty.
If not, we'll come down to Melbourne.
Well, once if the borders don't close, shit.
Yeah, but right now
Yeah.
Victoria is like, no,
It's
sorry.
open itself. It's more like a right now. It's like more of a visa situation. So the government is been postponing her for the longest time, and I'm just like, sis, I need answers. Sis, give me my yeah.
Give me
we'll
my
see.
visa.
We'll see. I don't want to jinx it for myself
Touch wood.
and for so yeah.
Okay. Well,
Okay. Thank you so much for your time, Tony.
yeah. Thank you.
It's
for
really,
having
really
me.
good, yeah.
I'm so happy to talk to you guys.
No, it's awesome. I think it's a really amazing thing for like our community to see, for our viewers to see, for anybody in the future who's going to be watching these videos. Everyone who's watching this, please like and share. Tag Tony, tag Tiff, tag I, tag Alice, and don't be afraid to bring up things we've discussed in this interview with your families and friends. It's just been a very powerful conversation.
And there's like a lot of
Yeah.
other topics that I want to discuss with Tony. Like, well, we want to discuss.
Do we
with
want a
Tony.
round two, everyone?
Yeah, like,
do we want a round
but
two?
you know, we'll save it for when he comes to Sydney.
Oh,
like,
and do it
in
live.
person. So you better get your ass here. I'm serious. Like, there's so much I want to talk to you about. Like,
Let's make it
it's
happen,
crazy.
guys. Episode 2 when I'm in Sydney. Let's make it.
Yes, that's
Yes.
it.
Be more
So,
than happy for that.
yeah. And Dennis is saying thank you for the discussion and info. A lot to process. And Al's like, one more round. One more round. One more round. Alrighty, but
But
just
honestly, thank
Yes.
you. Like, one last word is just like, thank you to all of us, literally, because we're all a part of this global and really positive change. And I know that it's like dark times and it just surrounds us. It's really tiring for Black people, but for like other people of color communities, for indigenous people. And like, you might think I'm reaching, but we're all living in this society and white people are living in this society too. So they're having it too. So just being exposed to those issues, everyone is having it tough. We're having it tougher. Indigenous people are having it tougher. People of color too, more than white people, but we're still all in the same boat, and we can all benefit a type of change, and it's positive. It's positive. I think it's going somewhere, and I'm really hoping that it's just a matter of it not stopping. I think it's going to be hard, but we should not rest, and it's no time to being lazy today.
yeah,
It's
keep your
just-
foot on the gas,
it's just
everyone.
never-
Yes.
and,
It's always more work.
if
to
you
be done.
decide to rest at some point, which is fair enough because mental health is really, really important. If we decide to rest, then we have to make sure then we're passing it on to someone else that can do the job in the meantime, so that it never discontinues. So lots of love for all of us. We the bomb, and long live Sydney dance community.
Yay!
And soon to get partnered up in this beat.
Yeah, you'll find him a partner.
But thank you so much, Tony. And you've had a few thank yous.
Yes,
So
Andy.
they've said thank you for sharing. And I just want to read Jackie's because she always writes quite a bit. So thank you, Tony. Great to hear your perspective. So important to hear. Much love and come back soon, bitch.
I promise. I will try my best.
hand performance.
Yeah.
Oh. Have you been training? Eat it up. Eat it up. Jackie, is it? Jackie, technique out of 10. Oh shit! Yes! Damn. Oh, Jackie's gonna be so proud. Holy shit.
Serving hands, feet.
Oh. Alrighty. So
Shin also says thank you.
yes. So guys, you're more than welcome to keep writing in the comments. Before we finish up our interview today, we're actually going to do a spotlight. So Tony, if you're not aware, at the end of every podcast, we do a spotlight. And so you'll still be able to see it on the live. But yeah, everyone say bye to Tony. Thank you so much, Tony, and really appreciate
Thank
you for
guys.
donating your
Love
time.
You, love you.
Thank you. Big love. Mwah! Oh. Alrighty. So everyone on the so for everyone on the podcast, thank you, Tony. So for everybody on the podcast, what we're going to be doing is spotlighting the amazing Nastya from Ukraine. So she is someone I was lucky enough to learn from when I was in China last year. So she's someone that a lot of us have been following for a very long time. I think she is such an amazing representative of the dance community globally, especially as a representative for women. When I went to IC's Force Connection dance camp in Wuhan, China last year, she was actually the only woman on the panel, and her class was amazing. And I think for me, going to class and just looking forward to doing her class, her being the only female and her representing, and just her whole presence, she's so inviting, she's so kind, and yeah, I just really want you guys to look into her. So yeah, if you guys want to look her up, you can find her on Instagram. You can ask us if you don't know what her dates are. But yeah, here's a video of Nastya. Bye bye.
No party once we crash the party. I'm a sweet shorty to vacate the party. You keep good and I pump the shotty. Put you with a trunk then dump the body. If you do it, you better ask somebody. Y'all get drunk in the class. I'm trying to break bricks off me and John Simon. Catch me in the club with a double-edged ring. I'm the wrong one to fuck with. Now I know the promoters, I'm in with the musket. With the hands in the box, you better just make it wrong. Your ass is out like a nigga, I'll mash you out if I can't get
I know what you did, yeah, I know, and I wanna talk about it, and I know you don't. I've been holding guard for so long, and I don't know where to start, now. Tell me where you hide, where do you go? Tell me, is she nice, does she know I know? Tell me why you lied, tell me why. I don't know what you are, now. What you did, yeah, you know I love you, but I can't forgive it. You could tell me stay, but I